Welcome, dear friends, to a heartwarming tale of redemption, second chances, and the transformative power of love in the face of life's unexpected twists and turns. Enjoy the story. The howling wind whipped snow against the windshield of Jack Thornton's luxury SUV, creating a dizzying vortex of white. Jack, a 40-year-old banker with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes, gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white from the effort. "Damn it!" he cursed, as the vehicle fishtailed once again on the treacherous road. The blizzard had caught the city off guard, turning the streets into a treacherous maze of ice and snow. As he regained control, Jack couldn't help but marvel at the vehicle's capabilities. "At least I splurged on this beast," he muttered to himself, a wry smile playing on his lips. Any other car would be in a ditch by now. The smile faded as quickly as it had appeared when he thought about the incompetence of the city's snow removal services. His friend Mike, the mayor, was going to get an earful about this tomorrow. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by another violent swerve. He decided to pull over and check for any damage. Stepping out into the biting cold, he zipped up his designer coat and circled the SUV. "Thank God," he breathed, relieved to find no visible damage. As he climbed back into the warmth of the car, Jack's mind wandered to his destination, home. The word home brought a mix of emotions to Jack. On one hand, it meant seeing his mother, Grace, whom he adored. On the other, it meant facing the reality of her deteriorating health. As he navigated the treacherous streets, memories of Grace in her prime flashed through his mind. Grace Thornton, the darling of Broadway, with her flowing red hair and captivating stage presence. Even now, at 70, she retained traces of that magnetic charm. Jack's mind drifted back to his childhood, growing up in the shadow of his mother's fame. He remembered the nights spent backstage, watching in awe as Grace transformed into countless characters, each more captivating than the last. There was the time she played Blanche DuBois in A Streetcar Named Desire, her vulnerability and strength leaving the audience in tears, or her Tony-winning performance as Maria Callas in Masterclass, where she commanded the stage with such authority that even Jack, barely 10 at the time, felt compelled to stand and applaud. But with the glory came the price of fame. Jack recalled the endless stream of admirers, the late-night parties, and the toll it all took on their family. His father, unable to handle being Mr. Grace Thornton, had left when Jack was just 5. "I've got to make this quick," Jack muttered to himself, pulling his thoughts back to the present. Just an hour at home, then back out for the negotiations. He knew it wasn't ideal, but the impending business deal was crucial. Still, the thought of his mother waiting for him, depending on him, made his heart ache. Despite his wealth and the army of caregivers he could afford, Jack insisted on caring for Grace himself. He knew how much it meant to her, a woman who had once commanded attention wherever she went, to maintain her dignity in illness. As he approached his childhood home, a grand Victorian mansion that had seen better days, Jack's mind drifted to his own life. At 40, he was at the peak of his career, but personally, he was alone. Jack's rise in the banking world had been meteoric. Fresh out of Harvard Business School, he had joined one of Wall Street's most prestigious firms. His sharp mind and ruthless determination quickly caught the attention of the higher-ups. By 30, he was heading his own division. By 35, he had started his own bank, which was now on the verge of becoming the primary financial institution in the region. But success had come at a cost. Friends had fallen by the wayside, unable to keep up with his relentless pace. Family gatherings had been missed, birthdays forgotten. And then there was Angela. The face of his ex-fiancée flashed unbidden in his mind. Even after all these years, the memory of her betrayal stung. Angela, with her golden hair and infectious laugh. Victor, his best friend since childhood, always by his side. Until that fateful day. Jack closed his eyes, reliving the moment in his office 9 years ago. Victor, pale and trembling, confessing to the affair. "I'm sorry, Jack, it just happened. Angela, she's... God, I'm so sorry." The pain had been indescribable. In one fell swoop, he'd lost the woman he loved and the man he trusted most in the world. Jack had cut them both out of his life that very day, throwing himself into his work with a vengeance. Now, as he walked towards the house, Jack shook his head to clear the painful memories. He had a mother to care for and a business empire to run. There was no time for dwelling on the past. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As Jack rounded the corner of his street, a small figure suddenly materialized in his headlights. His heart leapt into his throat as he slammed on the brakes, the SUV's tires screaming in protest as it slid on the icy road. "Jesus Christ!" Jack yelled, his heart pounding. He threw the car into park and leapt out, expecting the worst. There, in the middle of the road, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, her small frame almost completely covered in snow. Large, frightened eyes peered out from a face framed by wet, golden curls. "Hey, kid! What the hell are you doing out here?" Jack's voice came out harsher than he intended, fueled by residual fear and adrenaline. The child's lower lip trembled, and suddenly she burst into tears, her small body racked with sobs. Jack's anger deflated immediately. He knelt down, trying to make eye contact with the terrified girl. Hey, it's okay. I'm sorry I yelled. Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl continued to cry, her teeth chattering from the cold. Jack looked around desperately, but the street was deserted, the blizzard having driven everyone indoors. "Okay, look," he said, making a split-second decision. "My house is just down the street. Why don't you come with me? We'll get you warmed up and figure out where you belong, okay?" The girl nodded silently, her big eyes still brimming with tears. As Jack led her to his house, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change irrevocably. Jack burst through the front door, the little girl in tow. "Mom?" he called out, his voice echoing through the high-ceilinged foyer. Grace's voice floated down from upstairs, weak but alert. "In here, Jack." "Listen, Mom, I can't stay long. I've got those negotiations, remember? But I've got a situation here." Jack's voice trailed off as he entered his mother's room, the little girl hiding behind his legs. Grace Thornton lay propped up in her bed, her once vibrant red hair now streaked with gray. But her green eyes were as sharp as ever as they took in the scene before her. "Jack Thornton," she said, her voice a mix of amusement and exasperation. "What have you done now?" Jack quickly explained the situation, watching as his mother's expression softened. "Oh, you poor dear," Grace said, addressing the little girl. "Come here, let me look at you." To Jack's surprise, the child stepped forward, seemingly drawn by the warmth in Grace's voice. "Mom, I hate to do this, but can you keep an eye on her? I really can't miss these negotiations." Grace waved him off. Go. Your mother may be bedridden, but she can handle one little girl. We'll be fine, won't we, sweetheart?" The girl nodded, a small smile finally gracing her features. As Jack hurried out, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. But the ticking clock in his mind drowned out any misgivings. He had an empire to secure. Grace watched her son leave, shaking her head slightly. "That boy," she muttered, "always in such a rush." She turned her attention to the little girl, who was looking around the room with wide-eyed curiosity. "Now then, my dear," Grace said gently, "why don't you tell me your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible. "Lily," Grace repeated, smiling. "What a beautiful name. Are you hungry, Lily? I bet we can find something tasty in the kitchen." As Grace slowly made her way out of bed, leaning heavily on her cane, Lily watched with concern. "Should you be getting up?" she asked, her small voice filled with worry. Grace chuckled. "Oh, don't you worry about me, dear. I may be old, but I'm tougher than I look. Now let's see about that snack, shall we?" As they made their way to the kitchen, Grace couldn't help but notice how Lily's eyes kept darting around, taking in the faded glamour of the house. Old theater posters lined the walls, and shelves were crowded with awards and mementos from Grace's illustrious career. "Do you like the theater, Lily?" Grace asked as she rummaged through the cupboards. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "My mom takes me sometimes. She says it's magic." Grace's eyes twinkled. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman. The theater is indeed magic. It can transport you to different worlds, make you laugh, cry, and everything in between. As they sat at the kitchen table, munching on cookies and sipping hot chocolate, Grace gently probed for more information. "Tell me about your mother, Lily. Where is she now?" Lily's face fell, and she stared into her mug. "She's sick, in the hospital. She told me to find. Grace leaned forward, her heart suddenly racing. "To find who, dear?" Lily looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "My dad. She said I needed to find my dad." In that moment, Grace felt as if the world had shifted beneath her. She looked at Lily, really looked at her, and suddenly saw what she had missed before. The shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw, they were unmistakably familiar. "Oh my," Grace breathed. "Oh my indeed." Meanwhile, Jack was in the midst of the most important negotiation of his career. The boardroom was tense, filled with the city's most powerful financial players. Jack stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding attention. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice steady and confident, "what we're proposing today isn't just a merger. It's a vision for the future of banking in this region." For the next 2 hours, Jack fought tooth and nail, his keen mind and sharp tongue working in tandem to secure his bank's position as the primary financial institution in the region. He parried verbal blows, closed million-dollar deals, and outmaneuvered his competitors at every turn. But even as he dominated the boardroom, a part of his mind kept drifting back to the little girl he'd left with his mother. Who was she? Where had she come from? As the meeting finally adjourned, Jack's VP, Tom, clapped him on the back. "Excellent work, Jack," he said, grinning. "You've just made history. Drink to celebrate?" Jack shook his head, already reaching for his phone. "Rain check, Tom. I've got to get home." As he drove through the now quiet streets, the blizzard having finally abated, Jack couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. Something was waiting for him at home, something that would change everything. Jack entered his house, calling out, "Mom, I'm back. Is everything okay?" The sight that greeted him in the living room stopped him dead in his tracks. There was his mother, Grace Thornton, walking slowly but steadily with the aid of a cane. The little girl, Lily, he reminded himself, trailed behind her, a look of concern on her small face. "Mom?" Jack's voice was barely a whisper. "You're walking?" Grace turned to him, her eyes twinkling with a mix of joy and something else. "Was that mischief?" "Oh, Jack, we have so much to talk about." Over the next hour, as Lily slept peacefully on the couch, Grace revealed a truth that shook Jack to his core. "Her name is Lily Thornton, Jack," Grace said softly, her eyes never leaving her son's face. "She's your daughter." Jack felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. What? But how? Who? Grace's eyes were full of sympathy as she handed him a letter. "It's from Angela, Jack. Lily is your child with Angela." As Jack read the letter, his world tilted on its axis. Angela had discovered she was pregnant after their breakup. Ashamed and afraid, she'd kept it a secret all these years. But now, gravely ill, she had sent Lily to find her father. "She's in the hospital, Jack," Grace said softly. "Terminal cancer. She wanted Lily to have a family when she's gone." Jack's mind reeled. A daughter. He had a daughter. And Angela? Angela was dying. "I don't understand," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "Why didn't she tell me? I would have." Grace reached out and took her son's hand. "Fear makes us do foolish things, Jack. You of all people should understand that." Jack looked at his mother sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" Grace sighed. "Jack, you've spent the last 9 years running from your feelings, burying yourself in work. You cut yourself off from everyone who cared about you, all because you were afraid of being hurt again." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Deep down he knew his mother was right. "Now," Grace continued, her voice gentle but firm, "you have a chance to make things right, to be the father that little girl needs, and maybe to find some healing for yourself in the process." Jack looked over at Lily, sleeping peacefully on the couch. In her face he could see echoes of himself, of Angela. His heart swelled with a love he'd never known before, mixed with a deep sadness for all the years he'd missed. Without a word, he grabbed his keys and rushed out the door. He had a hospital to find and a past to confront. The hospital corridors seemed endless as Jack searched for Angela's room. When he finally found her, the sight nearly brought him to his knees. Angela lay on a gurney in the hallway, covered with a thin gray blanket. She was a shadow of the vibrant woman he remembered, her once golden hair limp and dull, her face gaunt and pale. Rage filled him at the sight of her neglect. He stormed to the nurse's station, his voice booming through the quiet corridor. "What the hell is going on here? Why is this patient in the hallway?" A flustered nurse tried to explain about overcrowding and limited resources, but Jack was having none of it. "Do you know who I am? I want her moved to a private room immediately, and get her doctor here now." As the staff scrambled to comply, Jack returned to Angela's side. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on him with difficulty. "Jack?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You came." All the anger and hurt of the past 9 years seemed to evaporate in that moment. Jack took her hand gently. "I'm here, Angela, and I've met Lily. She's beautiful." A weak smile touched Angela's lips. "She's so much like you, Jack. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I kept her from you." Jack shook his head, tears forming in his eyes. "We need to talk, Angela. There's so much I don't understand." Angela nodded weakly. "Yes, we do. But first, Jack, you need to know. I never cheated on you. Not with Victor, not with anyone." Jack felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath him. "What?" "But Victor said—" "Victor lied," Angela said, her voice growing stronger with determination. He made a pass at me. I rejected him. He was drunk, angry. He thought if he couldn't have me, he'd make sure you wouldn't either. I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. And then I found out I was pregnant." Jack's mind reeled. 9 years of anger, of feeling betrayed, all based on a lie. "Oh God, Angela, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have—" Angela squeezed his hand. "We both made mistakes, Jack. But we have a chance to make things right. For Lily. For us." Just then, Dr. Patel entered the room. "Mr. Thornton? I understand you wanted to speak with me about Ms. Cooper's condition." Jack stood, wiping his eyes. "Yes, doctor. I want to know everything. What's her prognosis? What treatments are available?" Dr. Patel looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Thornton, I'm afraid Ms. Cooper's cancer is quite advanced. However, there is a new clinical trial that's showing promising results. It's highly experimental, but given Ms. Cooper's condition, we believe she would be an excellent candidate." For the first time in years, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. He turned to Angela. "What do you think? Are you willing to try?" Angela nodded, a spark of her old determination in her eyes. "I'm not giving up, Jack. Not now that we've found each other again." The next few months were a whirlwind of treatments, tests, and cautious optimism. Jack threw himself into Angela's care with the same intensity he applied to his business dealings. He researched every aspect of her treatment, hired the best specialists, and made sure she had around-the-clock care. All the while, he was getting to know his daughter. Lily spent her days at the hospital with Angela, and her evenings with Jack and Grace. Slowly, tentatively, they were becoming a family. One evening, as Jack was tucking Lily into bed in the guest room of his childhood home, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy?" she said, her voice small in the darkness. "Are you and Mommy going to get married?" Jack's heart skipped a beat. He sat on the edge of the bed, struggling to find the right words. "I don't know, sweetheart. Right now, we're focusing on helping Mommy get better. But I promise you, no matter what happens between me and Mommy, we both love you very much." Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, "I hope you do. Get married, I mean. I want us to be a real family." Jack pulled Lily into a hug, feeling a mix of love and uncertainty. "We are a real family, sweetie, no matter what." Later that night, as he sat in his study reviewing Angela's latest test results, Grace came to join him. "How is she doing?" Grace asked, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. Jack looked up, a smile breaking across his face. "The treatment's working, Mom. Her latest scans show the tumors are shrinking." Grace's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh, Jack, that's wonderful news." "It is," Jack agreed, But what? Grace prodded gently. Jack sighed. But I don't know where we go from here. Angela and I mean. We've been apart for so long. We've both changed. And there's still so much hurt, so much to work through. Grace sat down beside her son. Love isn't about being perfect, Jack. It's about choosing each other every day, despite the imperfections. You and Angela have been given a second chance. Don't waste it. As Angela's health improved, she was able to leave the hospital and move into Jack's home. The adjustment wasn't easy. Years of separation and misunderstanding had left their mark, and there were days when the tension was palpable. But there were good days too. Days when they'd sit in the garden, watching Lily play, and it felt like no time had passed at all. Days when they'd laugh over shared memories, or work together to solve some minor crisis in Lily's life. One sunny afternoon, as they sat on the porch swing, Angela turned to Jack. I've been thinking, she said hesitantly, about us, about our future. Jack felt his heart rate quicken. Oh? Angela took a deep breath. I think we should try again. Us, I mean, if you want to. Jack was quiet for a long moment, his mind racing. Finally, he turned to Angela, taking her hand in his. I do want to. But Angela, we can't just pick up where we left off. We need to rebuild, to get to know each other again, to learn to trust each other. Angela nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I know, and it won't be easy. But Jack, when I was sick, when I thought I was going to die, all I could think about was you, about the life we could have had. I don't want to waste any more time. Jack leaned in, gently wiping a tear from Angela's cheek. Neither do I, he whispered, before pulling her into a soft, tender kiss. From the doorway, unnoticed by the couple, Lily watched with a wide grin on her face. She turned to Grace, who stood behind her. Grandma, she whispered excitedly, I think it's working. Grace chuckled softly, pulling her granddaughter into a hug. I think you might be right, my dear. The next year was one of healing and growth for the Thornton family. Angela's cancer went into remission, and she slowly regained her strength. Jack learned to balance his work with his family life, delegating more responsibilities at the bank so he could be present for Angela and Lily. They went to family therapy, working through the hurt and misunderstandings of the past. It wasn't always easy, but with each session, each honest conversation, they grew stronger as a family. Lily blossomed under the love and attention of both her parents. She excelled in school, made new friends, and filled the house with laughter and joy. On a crisp autumn day, exactly 1 year after Angela's last treatment, Jack took her for a walk in the park where they had first met. As they reached the old oak tree where he had proposed all those years ago, Jack dropped to one knee. Angela, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I know we've been through hell and back. I know we've hurt each other and that we still have a lot of work to do. But I also know that I love you more now than I ever have. You're strong, you're brave, you're an amazing mother to our daughter. Will you marry me? Again? Angela's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, unable to speak. Jack slipped the ring on her finger, not the original engagement ring, but a new one, symbolizing their new beginning. As they walked home, hand in hand, Angela looked at Jack. You know, she said with a mischievous grin, we should really track down Victor and thank him. Jack raised an eyebrow. Thank him? For what? Well, Angela laughed, if he hadn't been such an idiot all those years ago, we might never have appreciated what we have now. Jack joined in her laughter, marveling at how far they'd come. You're right. Maybe we'll send him a wedding invitation. As they approached their home, they could see Lily and Grace in the front yard, planting bulbs for the spring. Lily looked up, her face lighting up at the sight of her parents. Mom! Dad! She called out, running to meet them. Did you do it? Did you ask her? Jack scooped Lily up in his arms, sharing a smile with Angela. I did, Pumpkin. How would you like to be our flower girl? Lily's squeal of delight echoed through the neighborhood, a joyful herald of the Thornton family's new beginning. As they all hugged, laughing and crying at the same time, Jack realized that sometimes life's greatest storms lead us exactly where we need to be.